Half auto, mix mode, or priority mode. These functions, they can have many different names, but I will stick to priority mode because that is pretty much what it is. It is the modes when you are making the priorities of the outcome of the picture and you're just letting the camera deal with the rest. It's not like you can't get the exact same results from the manual mode. You can. There's nothing physically different with the camera in the priority modes. You could consider them being light manual modes. I do the thing because it's in the script. So why even bother putting the camera in these modes then? There could be several reasons for this. One could be you're just having a lazy day and you don't want to jitter around with the buttons on your camera. The other one can be that you've just put the camera in this mode trying to figure out what the heck it does and you're just getting all grumpy. But once you have got your head around it and understood what they do, you're going to be using these modes quite a lot. I do. Usually it's because I have my priorities set for what I want the picture to become, and I just let the camera deal with the things that are of no priority to me. I just focus on taking the pictures and getting them in the way that I want them. And usually I don't need to control everything myself because I have the priorities set. And that is where these priority modes come in very, very handy. It works like this. Once you have figured out the manual mode from my previous videos, and you're in a situation where one or the other feature doesn't really matter to you, then the priority modes will come in extremely handy for you. Meaning that there will be times when the shutter speed is really important to you when you're, for example, doing something that with a lot of speed and you want to freeze it in the air. And there will be times when the aperture is really important to you when you want to be in control of the depth of field, while the other two in those cases will be of no interest to you. So you don't really have to put your time and effort into putting those settings right. You can just let the camera do it for you. I will give you a few examples. Let's say you have somebody on a BMX bike and they're going in a BMX ramp. They're going into the shade and out of the shade and they're moving about all the time. Now, the coolest pictures in such a scenario would be for the most when the BMX is up in the air and you're freezing that moment in the air. If you watch my other videos, then you will know that in order to do this, it's the shutter speed that will determine how still something is in the picture when you're taking it. So let's say we choose a shutter speed of 1/2000 of a second. That way we will be pretty sure that it's going to be frozen in the air. Now, if you try to adjust the aperture manually by adjusting it according to the sun and the shade and other things, you will be really busy trying to get that feature in place, and you will probably be missing a whole lot of pictures, or you will be taking them and not really getting the result you want. So, wouldn't it be nice if you could just concentrate and put the shutter speed to what you want and not really have to think about the rest, letting the camera do the aperture? There you go, you guessed it. That is what the priority modes are for. So in this case, you choose the shutter priority mode. That means that you are taking control of the shutter speed while the camera is doing the rest for you with the aperture. On the Canon camera, they are labeled TV, and on a Nikon it's S, and then there's other brands that will have a similar marking of this feature. The other priority mode is Aperture. And the first thing that comes to mind when you want to be in control of the aperture or the depth of field is usually when you're taking portraits. That would be because you want to separate the background from the model by having it out of focus and then the model being really crispy and sharp in the foreground. That's usually the kind of look that you want to do when you're doing portraits. And being outdoors, for example, where the clouds are coming and going, or maybe you're just moving slightly on locations, you're going a little bit into the shade, further into the shade, you're using different kind of reflectors and things like that. But you have a scenario when the light is constantly changing a bit on you, then it will be very convenient to use the aperture priority mode, because then you will just set what kind of depth of field you want, and from there on the camera will just do the shutter speed settings for you. It's very convenient, as I say, but you should keep a little eye on the shutter speed, because if you're not in bright light conditions, the camera might choose to have quite long shutter speeds, which will ruin the pictures for you in either the blur that will be introduced from you not being able to hold the camera still, or even the model could be moving around, and that will give you some motion blur from the model. So just keep an eye on it so it doesn't go for too long shutter speed. And if you are in a situation where this is liable to happen, that you're getting a little bit too long shutter speeds, then I rise the ISO for a little bit. Now, a reason for wanting the aperture set at a certain level that is often overlooked, I think, is something that I use quite a lot, especially when I'm in Africa and on safaris with my clients. When I'm there in the situation with animals and things, I usually set it to aperture priority mode, and I use it as a guarantee that I have quite a lot of depth of field. Actually the opposite from taking portraits. And the reason for this is that when you're in those kind of situations, things are happening and it's very unpredictable. You vision two lion cubs playing around, and you're trying to get the faces or the expressions of the faces. It's very hard to set the focus point exactly on the nose or in the face of the lion at such a situation. So you will probably be hitting it on the body or a cub in front of it. Now, if you have guaranteed or insured yourself that you have a quite long depth of field, meaning that there's a deeper part of the picture that is going to be in focus, then you're allowing yourself to make those mistakes and actually putting the focus point not exactly where you want it, and you will still have a sharp image. Of course, it's not in all situations you can do this. I can do this in those situations mainly because I have a lot of lights. I don't have to really worry very much about the camera choosing a shutter speed that will exceed the limit of what I can hold the camera still in, because there's usually a lot of light, so that is not an issue for me. Of course, there are other situations where this is just not possible. But whenever you have the possibility to use the features of your camera to your advantage, do it. So isn't this a way to just let the camera make the choices for you then, and you're out of control? No, not really. Exposure compensation. Now this one you see indicated on your screen. It's like a laying down ladder with a dot on it, and in manual mode this dot is moving back and forth over that ladder to the right or to the left. That one in manual mode indicates if the camera expects your picture to be overexposed or underexposed, depending on which side of the center of this ladder it is. In the middle, you usually have one spike that is a little higher than the other ones. And when you have that little dot running across the screen in manual mode, then that is telling you what you could expect from the picture being overexposed or underexposed. And if you have that little dot way off to the right, then you should make some adjustments in order to get it into the middle by making the picture going darker. And you will have to watch the other videos in order to get a hang of how you do that. But it's all there. You can just look at the videos. In the priority modes, however, it acts a bit different. Here you're actually in control of the picture's over or under exposure, in contrast to what the camera is going to give you. So if you are in a situation where the camera is giving you too dark pictures, not too dark, when the camera is giving you too dark pictures, then you could tell the camera by adding +1 or 2 steps on this exposure compensation ladder that I want you to make the picture 2 steps brighter than you think that it should be. That means that you are actually in control of the exposure as well as the feel of the picture when it comes to shutter speed or aperture. Needless to say, if you do it in the other way, that you tell the camera to go 2 steps darker, then the picture will be darker. So it's giving you a huge amount of control over the exposure as well as the aperture or shutter speed, depending on which priority mood you're in. So this feature, the exposure compensation, it goes hand in hand with the priority modes. You work those two and you're getting what you want from the pictures. Now I'm doing these videos in the order that I think is fit, but I would really appreciate if you would comment below of episodes that you would like to see in the future, and that way I can adjust it to be more in the line of what you want rather than what I think you want. Yeah, that's about what I meant to say. Of course, subscribers are inspiring me to do more of these videos. So please, if you got anything out of this video, press the subscribe button, the notifications button, and of course the like button as well. Thank you.